Welcome, Julie. It's been a minute since I was on your podcast, so it's nice to return the favor. So the viewers out there who don't know who Julie Berninger is, can you give us a little bit of history, background, and what it is you do?
Sure. I'm a co-founder of Gold City Ventures, and we've helped since 2019 20,000 students start digital products and printable businesses on Etsy.
Wow, 20,000 students is huge. You started kind of like where I was. You were in a corporate environment and then ended up leaving and going to do your own thing, right?
So I was working in the tech scene, and I was very fortunate to land jobs at the big major tech companies like Apple and Amazon, and I was right in the heart of the action. So I would have achieved my goals of what I thought I wanted my life to be. Yet I became super weirdly obsessed with selling things on the internet. And every lunch break, every time I was commuting to and from work, I had these huge Beats headphones on, just crushing podcasts, trying to get ideas of the businesses that I wanted to start. Because instead of just being happy with my salary at these companies, I decided that I was going to work for myself and restart everything again. And that's when I realized I just love the game of business. But my avenue for doing that was actually selling on Etsy. So I started the Swag Elephant to sell temporary tattoos. And then doing that plus having a demanding job, I realized, okay, this is kind of a lot. I was making some design mistakes with inventory. So I still have about 1,000 raunchy bachelorette party tattoos in a box somewhere in my closet that I'll never use. And I switched to digital and I just never looked back. I sold our first in the bachelorette party space. My best product was a scavenger hunt bar crawl. And then I branched out to sell other things. But that was really the light bulb for me. And at the time, I was podcasting about financial independence and retiring early, but the episodes about Etsy always seemed to do the best. So I leaned into that. And in 2019, I met my business partner, Cody, and we ended up launching Gold City Ventures. And we doubled down on Etsy. And since then, we've grown it to a huge community and course, and we specialize in printables.
That's awesome. It's so interesting to hear like how people kind of got into it. And I get what you're saying about, it's almost like there's an element of serial entrepreneurship that is just kind of innate. It's part of our being, right? It's like once you do one thing and you see some kind of glimmer of success, it's like, how can I replicate this and how can I do it differently? And, it's one of those things like, same vein, like it's morphed from doing my own freelance stuff to get away from the corporate to, starting my own Etsy shop. And then, that bug bites you in the butt. And now you just want to do more and bigger and better because nothing feels off limits anymore, right? Like nothing feels too taboo or unattainable. One thing that I think sets you apart is that, you focus on profit first. You self-described as a profit first focus. And you also have a seasonal strategy that kind of accompanies that, right? So how does that profit first focus shape the ideas that you teach? And what part of the seasonal plan works best? Maybe even how much money are people actually making in the world of printables?
So the first thing I would say is that a lot of us got into this because it was a creative outlet on top of everything else we were already doing. And we were hoping that creative outlet would make money. And I see people come into our community with different mentalities, but there's a lot of, this is a hobby mentality. And a hobby mentality will not, unfortunately, make you money unless you get lucky and you happen to pick a product or a niche that you like that actually makes sales. This is a business mentality is what actually works and is guaranteed to work. And as someone that is getting paid to coach people on Etsy, I really want to get you results. So I want to get you as close as I can to that business mentality. And it really starts before you even make the product. When you're selling digital printables, you're making these files, often using a free tool like Canva to make the file, and then you're downloading it and you're uploading that to your Etsy listing. The process of making the design is fun. And for a lot of people, they find it very creative. But if you didn't do the work even before you made the design to pick the product that will actually sell, then you're playing with fire. If you really want to get ROI on your time, you got to spend time, use the keyword research tools, and try to find validation that this idea makes sense and that spending the time to make the printable is going to be worth it. So that's what we call our profit first mentality here. And in order to do that, we suggest that people pick the first seasonal holiday that's upcoming, maybe like a month out or 6 weeks out. And they use that to find the correct, and by correct, I mean potential profitable products to sell. So that's our seasonal strategy. And a lot of people feel that maybe chasing the seasons isn't the best use of people's time, but I have seen 20,000 students do it. And the ones that make the early sales, it's like a feedback loop for them. It's motivation for them to keep going when they see those sales. And then it's often easier and more approachable to kind of break into those seasonal products than it is to some of the more competitive, more expensive evergreen niches. So that's kind of part of our strategy of how we go about teaching people how to sell printables.
That's a lot to unpack. So I get the seasonal element. So what was interesting is that you said like a month, like so 4 to 6 weeks out. Etsy tells us, right, like their own from the horse's mouth, it's can be up to 60 to 90 days for their bots to crawl your listing and to figure out when and to whom they show your listing and that sort of thing. I also feel like if you nail your ideal customer and you know who you're targeting, you can shorten that window to like a matter of days. It obviously feels like you are in the same camp that way, right?
Yes, and it really depends on first, what are you selling?
Yeah.
So we have had people that list a trick or treat sign 5 seconds before they go trick or treating because every single customer has the same problem that night where they realize, oh, I'm taking my kids trick or treating. There's going to be no one at the door. So I need a sign that says, take 1 or 2, not the whole bowl, please, or something like that. That's a common thing. And so the customer is buying that actually the night of Halloween. So that's one where you can list at the last second. And as long as you're making the best product and, depending on how many other competitors there are, that's one that could make sense for you to list late. Whereas something that requires a longer consideration period or people plan in advance, or it's not a last minute product, you obviously need to do that earlier.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I actually think, even though Etsy might say 6 to 8 weeks in their marketing, why a shorter time frame is often better is because for a brand new person, having to wait 2 months to get feedback that you did your listing images a little bit wrong is really frustrating. And you're spending 2 months just kind of waiting to get that it didn't work or not. So sometimes I shorten it almost because I've seen so many people do it and they need to get it listed, get it out there, and then find out did it work or not. And then the more times you can do that over and over, the better you're going to get faster.
Yeah, and then the more you learn from what also didn't work, right?
Yep.
That's a great segue actually into, because you have a bit of a slide deck with us and you're going to go through some examples of things that work, and then also because it's real life, not everything works. So you've got some examples of kind of what not to do as well.
Yes, so I'll show you the examples here. It also might help people too who haven't seen a digital product before. All right. So first of all, that's me. Nice to meet you all. I currently don't look like that. I'm 39 weeks pregnant. So if you hear someone huffing and puffing, it's because I'm close to the end here. The first niche that I have for you that I want to discuss is kind of a fun one. And I think this might apply to your audience that also sells POD. There's this very, very unique trend of people that are creating products for just one season. And it kind of blew my mind. I haven't seen many new things since 2019. And when I saw this, I was thinking, wow, this is kind of wild. Like I've seen shops for just one niche, or I've seen shops for just one kind of product on Etsy, like POD, for example. But just one season, no. And when I'm talking about creating winning products here, so you can see a bunch of bestsellers. I took this screenshot right after the Christmas season had passed because I wanted to make sure that we could get exactly what the data was, because you know how it is with some of the keyword research tools to get the seasonal data. But in the shop's first month, it made almost 11,000 sales. And what shops are doing that? So here's a good example of how much money people are actually making selling seasonal products on Etsy. And it's kind of a fun example for me because I don't see this very often. This person created a shop in December of last year where they only sold printable and digital Christmas files. So we're talking the red and green, really gaudy things for kids to celebrate, for adults to celebrate. And what's amazing is that they made almost 11,000 sales in that first month on Etsy. And for anyone who's tried to start an Etsy shop, they know that 11,000 sales in 1 month is actually insane. So the seasonal strategy really works. And if you have the energy to make a pop-up shop, it's something to consider.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I'm looking at 30-day sales total here, and I'm assuming that's, at that point we're into month 2, but like almost 3,000 sales
Yeah, and I screenshot this from eRank in January of last year because I wanted to get that I wanted to capture what it actually looked like right after it ended, and all of us that use the keyword tools know that it's a little bit more accurate right after the holiday has completed versus, looking at it months later. But
Yeah.
it's truly insane. So the idea is that you just make products to help people celebrate, and the demand is so high on Etsy for seasonal stuff that it will just carry you. Now, of course, you have to use the right listing images and clip art and everything to attract your ideal buyer, but seasonal stuff really works. So that's an example of a niche that someone could get into. They can make pop-up shops for Halloween, or they could do it for Easter or one of the other bigger holidays. And it could really, really be a great profitable way for you to make some money every year during that time.
What intrigues me about the whole printable thing, and it's also, almost kind of similar to what I would say as like a digital downloads shop that way, is the passivity, I guess, for lack of a better word, but the passive element. There's no POD company in the mix. There's no third party options or solutions that are necessary. Everything is just literally buy, purchase, download.
Yep. And I think what's amazing about that is, yes, it's simple. So for people that are busy, it's the perfect way to do it. And I also think there's a misconception that you have to trade revenue for it. And obviously, if someone's making 11,000 sales, even if the printable is $5, they're making a lot of money in that month. So you can still do well as long as you're strategic. So picking
It's
something that's high volume or even a product that is more expensive.
Yeah, if it's $1, you're still making 11 grand, right? A month.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And that's what everybody kind of wants to sell as the dream is 10K a month. That's also something, the 5-figure months. What I really like is the messaging that you and Cody kind of have that way is that, you're not professing 5-6-figure months. You talk about how to make 4-figure months. And those are life-changing numbers that I think people we can latch on to that. It doesn't feel unrealistic. You're not selling a dream. You're selling something that is attainable. And I love the kind of the messaging there. So I just wanted to touch on that a bit.
Yeah, and a grand a month is only 30 something dollars a day. So you can make 3 sales of a $10 digital product. You could do
Yeah.
10 sales of a $3 digital product. And the reality of it is that most people who are starting this side hustle, they don't have the liberty to do nothing all day but this side hustle. They have caregiving responsibilities, they are working, they're doing other stuff and they're busy. So it can be discouraging when you hear these huge stories about someone making $600,000 on Etsy. And there are people that do that selling digital products. But if you break it down to what is attainable when you're learning and say, hey, my goal is to get $1,000 per month. And that actually was Cody, my business partner's goal last summer, because we started our shops years ago. And he said, can I do it again recently? And how long would it take me? And I think in 4 months, he got to $1,000 per month. And then he got to $2,500 per week, like really soon after. So you can go big with it. And no one's stopping you. But this way, if you set concrete goals, like the $30 per day goal, you're more likely to achieve something, and then you can snowball it.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't write down those goals or put them at least type them somewhere, just by doing that, you're already 80% more likely to achieve them. So set those goals, write them down, make them tangible, right? Set them in a way that you can mentally grasp that you can attain these, right? Not these unrealistic kind of shoot for the stars things immediately. Get the wins under your belt, build the confidence. I love it.
Okay, so the second one is just a fun one that I included, but if you happen to speak another language, there are certain markets that are taking off on Etsy right now. And we actually surprisingly saw the German market do really well. So this was a niche that I found on eRank too. And what these things are that you're seeing on the screen here are happy birthday cards where someone includes like money and they're celebrating different milestone birthdays. That this is not a foreign concept to me as someone that has sold digital downloads for a while. People are giving people last minute gifts that are printable because they forgot to buy them a gift, or it's just they like to DIY, it looks cute. So this is something that's already big in the US, but maybe you speak another language or you're a ChatGPT wizard and you can create something simple in one of these emerging market languages. And you can see here, I mean, this German market shop, it was doing 30,000 in sales almost in its first year, which was that's really good for anyone that's just getting started on Etsy. And the design is actually not that hard. Like that's something too that I like to look at, because when you're coming in the digital download space, the top 2 things people want to make, I want to make wall art, which that's gotten easier with AI, but for a long time, when people want to make something good enough to hang in someone's living room, it's difficult to do when they're doing that themselves with Canva. But you don't need to pick this super intense graphic design heavy niche like wedding, for example. You can pick something a little more approachable, like the Christmas printables that I just showed you, or something like this that's simpler.
It's funny you say German market, because I have seen this. So another thing to pay attention, folks, on Etsy is like, you would know this, Julie, or maybe you guys don't run a lot of ads, right? You were saying, so maybe not. But when you do run ads, Etsy will throw in a bunch of keywords that they think you should rank for, like it's AI driven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on us to go in there and toggle those off if they don't make sense, which is also, something that I don't love to have to do. And I had a ton of listings that had German, specifically German titles in them and German search words. So it's mind blowing to me to see that this is something that you're seeing kind of, I guess, similarly in the printables kind of area, but it totally makes sense. I've seen that as well in the last, and I would say the first time I toggled off a German keyword was easily back January, probably. So, I mean, it's been a thing for a while.
And I'm not shocked. I mean, from Etsy's perspective, as a company, they did really well coming out of that 2020, 2021 time period when people were shopping online and they were home. And then now they have to find a way to make more money and to kind of get back to where they were. I mean, their stock price is down a little bit since then. And shareholders, they want value. So one of the ways they can do it is by growing internationally. So they probably do want to encourage more sellers to come from these other countries. And we don't know. I mean, I think maybe it was last year or the year before, if you remember the Etsy ad that ran during the Super Bowl. I'm sure they're spending money in these other locales to try to get them to shop on Etsy. So in order to do that, they need us sellers to provide these products. That being said, I mean, I wouldn't just randomly put a German product in my shop and hope that it worked out.
No.
I think this person clearly has a cohesive effort to cater to that strategy, but maybe something to think about. And I think other countries that would fit here, I know France, Canada, UK, and Australia are also areas where I can see more interest. Also Spanish-speaking printables as well.
For sure. Absolutely.
The third category I want to talk about is the simple one-pager. And this is really the bread and butter at Gold City Ventures. And most of the students coming in, they sell something like this and they can do really well. And I think the misconception is I need to create something complicated or savvy. Like the examples I gave you before were kind of savvy examples. These are simple things. You make them US letter size or journal size, and you use just Canva icons, put it all together on a page, maybe bundle a couple things together, and you can do really well. So in this particular product, it's a bucket list. So someone would be planning what they want to do for their year. And it was making almost, over 1,000 sales in 2 days. Of course, this product sells year round, but it's more seasonal, kind of like at the beginning of the year tends to be when products like this do well. But you don't have to really overthink it. You could create something really simple using free tools, list it, and it could supplement, if you are selling print on demand, like maybe just a couple of these products could supplement what else you're already doing and just add some revenue. So I think this one's a fun idea.
That is cool. And it's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but are those little check boxes beside each icon? So it's literally a tick box kind of thing?
Yes. And I think things like this are in popular culture. So I'm not a huge TikTok user, but I'm sure people are getting ideas to do stuff like this from TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So kind of understanding what the trends are and what the words are, like the bucket list. Those of us, we kind of thought it meant what you should do before you die, but it actually means like what you should do this year. And this person made a bucket list for every season.
That's funny. I was just going to say, like, yeah, bucket list to me has always been like, the things you always wanted to do while you still can, ultimately. That's pretty cool. But also I'm seeing this as a win for kids because like my parents and I, we would do, and my sister, we would do like, cross Canada road trips, would make these lists of things because before the internet, right, of things to find. And you play I Spy and stuff like that. But then we would have like almost like road trip bingo. And this is very much the same kind of in the same vein, right? Now you just print it off, hand it to the kid in the back seat of the car, and away you go.
Yeah,
really cool
for kids, and then also huge crossovers for teachers and school systems and after school programs and daycares and preschools. Not all of the
Love it.
digital products are for kids, but there is a large market of people that are doing it. And you might know this, but Teachers Pay Teachers is a place
Yeah.
where you can also list products like this. And a lot of people sell on both. But you would be surprised, more and more teachers are also looking to Etsy, and also like some of the specialized program where they still work with kids, but they're not teachers per se. They're finding their products there. So you can't go wrong creating that genre.
I remember Teachers Pay Teachers when you had to be a teacher, and then they kind of opened the doors a little bit that way. But um, I was going to actually ask you about that. So more are coming to Etsy than the other way around?
Well, I think more are coming to Teachers Pay Teachers, but the success of Teachers Pay Teachers has spun over on Etsy, and
Got
there are
it.
people that sell them both. So we have a student, Chelsea. She did really well on Etsy, and she was a former teacher, but she sells on Etsy and Teachers Pay Teachers. And but the one thing you need to know though, the aesthetic on Teachers Pay Teachers is very different. So you can't just list them apples to apples here. You have to kind
Right.
of modify it because the teachers have a certain vibe. They like certain fonts. If anyone has a teacher in their life, there's certain fonts that are cute. There's certain ways that those listing images look. So you should do a little bit of research before you just kind of like throw them up on both places.
Great tip there. Like I sell on a few different marketplaces for a POD, and it's completely different customers, the different shoppers you're catering to, right?
Yeah, it's totally
Smart.
different. So it's, well, it's not totally different. It's just the teachers have a little bit different of a vibe. So I also wanted to quickly go through the good and bad of digital products in case anyone's new here of like, okay, how do I actually make sure that what I list is worth my time so I can actually make money on it? And that's kind of our profit first mentality. So the first thing of getting into that, we have a little bit of a story time here, but that product that you see on the screen is my Bachelorette scavenger hunt, which was one of my first products that I sold. And at the time, the rose gold and gold were like really big for that niche. So that's the aesthetic that people wanted. And I had a bar crawl printable here. So those are all things in the bar crawl. What I sometimes hear from sellers, particularly ones that have been around a while, they might be complaining in Facebook groups saying, oh, my sales are down, or my bestseller is not as good anymore. Etsy's not as good anymore. And I know that can be super frustrating. But when that has actually happened to me, when I do the research, it's something that I am not doing. That's the reason why that product does not sell anymore. And that can be kind of hard to evaluate yourself. But I wanted to give this example because it's the example of once you have a bestseller, you definitely should leave it there. But if you start to see it losing steam and it's not related to it being seasonal, like for example, Bachelorette sells really well in the spring and summer, not as much in November. You can imagine people aren't going out on bachelorette parties then, particularly bar crawls in the open. But what I found is that the cultural expectations have kind of changed. So first, the product needed to be edible to get more competitive. So I made it editable with Cordial. Now a lot of people just use Canva, so you don't have to buy a second subscription or Canva Pro to make these templates. But people really wanted it personalized. In the printable space, you don't have to make something personalized right off the bat if the other competitors don't have it, but it can be a way that if you allow the customer to edit, you can kind of edge out if there are more other competitors that are kind of in the space. Two, I had to make 2 printables per page instead of 1. Because when I first started, people were just printing these out letter size, but then they wanted them to be laminated and hung in lanyards around people's necks. So I had to package them differently.
Mm-hmm.
3, I had to do a mobile version because that became more popular. And I mentioned this because you can't just leave a bestseller for years. You have to really like freshen it up depending on what else is happening in the market for that product. So I mentioned this as a costly mistake, but many people don't really think about that, or they forget to kind of go back and see, oh, wow, 2 more people just came into the space. Or they'll think it's just like a cost play and they'll say, oh, well, someone came in and they're selling it for $1 less. It's very possible that that's it, but it also could be that you're kind of losing the feature race.
Totally. Everything I'll say, even like evergreen that, we'll call something like a bachelorette thing, pretty much evergreen. It is seasonal, but I mean, it's not, bachelorettes are still going to be a thing for as long as we're alive. Right. But every evergreen item still has a shelf life, right? There's still an expiry date. You still got to stay on trends with like, the aesthetics, like you said, like maybe it's not rose gold and anymore. Maybe it's something else, right? The aesthetics are what ultimately has those kind of expiry dates. And it's not that we won't see them or they won't be popular again in 2 or 3 years from now, but it's what's trending is what's going to keep, stay abreast of that stuff. I think that makes a big difference. Those are really, really good points. And I think a lot of people overlook that, right? It's like, it's saturation, it's competition. It's not really always about that, right? It's about, what are you doing different or not doing that your new competition is doing differently than you?
Right. And more than just the feature set, you mentioned the trends. And when I was in that age bracket where I was invited to all the bachelorette parties, I was more up on what was popular. And now sometimes I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, people want to pretend they're camping for their bachelorette party. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's a big trend, like camping, and they have green ones. And it's just so foreign because I haven't been to one in a while. So you do have to put in that research. And that's why it's easier to sell something that you know pretty well.
They're pretending they're camping?
It's just the theme.
Okay. Interesting.
They're not pretending they're camping. It's like a camp bachelorette. Like, oh, we're all doing this camp and there's a lot of activities. And
Got it.
I mean, it makes sense because people are now making, instead of one night things, they're like destinations and they're all together and they're staying together and it's very scheduled. So I get sort of where it's coming from, but me selling in this space now where I'm not living in that world, it's just a reminder of like, okay, I need to spend a little more time going out and making sure that I understand the trends. So that's going on to social media,
Yes.
TikTok, Instagram, and just researching like it's not necessarily what are people selling for printables. It's like, what are the videos about bachelorette parties? Like, where are the people even getting ideas to go on Etsy because they want to have a similar bachelorette party with this theme? So if you kind of understand where the customers are even getting the ideas to begin with, I think you'll have an easier time making more profitable products.
I think that holds true. I mean, that transcends marketplaces, products, everything, right? It's ultimately knowing your customer. What are they talking about? Where are they hanging out online?
So I have a couple other mistakes that I want to cover, but we talked about picking a winning product right off the bat. That needs to happen, non-negotiable. Not understanding why someone wants to use the product. That's something that I see quite a bit. And it's really understanding what they're looking for, who's buying it, how are they going to use it. That's how you make the right features. I see sometimes newer people, they only look at what the other competitors are selling on Etsy. And they're like, oh, they have these 4 things, so I need these 4 things. Or they have this text, so I need this 4 text. But they could have not done this research either. And now all of you have something that's a little off. Whereas if you could be the one person to kind of figure out what the customer wants, you can do really, really well. And then the last thing, just the listing images. So I can be tired by the time that I make the actual product. So then I spend just not that much time on the listing images. But the reality is you probably need to spend a lot of time on the listing images because that's all the customer has to go for whether your product is better or not. Because your product could be 100 million times better than the next person. But if they have better listing images, they're not even going to get to see your product. So I do try to encourage everybody to fight the urge to just kind of wrap it up, to spend that extra second on those images.
Oh yeah, you want to interrupt the feed and stop the scrolling, right? So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Making sure you're listing it appropriately. We talked about that. Being open to feedback from other people of what you're doing wrong. That's why coaching programs or getting a coach is probably worth it versus just consuming on YouTube, because you may not be interpreting something in the same way, or it's not coming out in your printable like the coach means it. But if you are having somebody who's keeping you accountable and just telling you like, hey, this listing image isn't what you think it might be, you need to change it this way, it's just going to be a faster learning curve, and time is money. So if it takes you 4 months to figure it out yourself versus 1 month of someone just telling you, personally, I always choose the shorter path, because then you can have 3 months of revenue, and maybe you'll get a big month like the 11,000 sales the person made selling elf printables or Christmas printables or whatever. So I really encourage people to kind of do that and have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think, it's like getting out of your own way from an egotistical perspective, right? Like just because, you got to leave the emotional kind of element out of it. It's hard to do as a newbie, especially because you were always so attached to these things that we're pouring our creativity and, into. But at the end of the day, it's got to be something that sells. And if you have somebody like yourself or myself that can tell you and solve that problem for you, that, A, it's not good enough, or B, change this and now it's okay. That's ultimately at the end of the day what you're paying for. Julie's experience when it comes to printables, that's I think where the value is. And I think a lot of people overlook that. They feel like if they just pay something, it's going to be this magic fix all, but it's you have to put in the work and you have to pay attention and do the things, right?
100%.
So you mentioned a couple of tools in there, and you mentioned Cordial and then Canva. Looking back now, I got a couple of notes here, but so let's talk about beginner tools. Like you show students how to make printables with free tools and ready-made templates, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. So we create Canva templates and we give them to students so that they can make printables. And we pick things that they can turn into dozens of other things. And we teach them how to do that because we all can't be selling the same thing. It's like, okay,
Right.
how do we take this? We do the keyword research and we create something unique with it. And Canva is free for anyone that hasn't used it. It's really easy to use, drag and drop. Most of us eventually upgrade to Canva Pro, but you don't necessarily need to use Canva Pro to get started. So that's really the only tool that you kind of need. You can use Etsy and other tools for keyword research, but we do recommend at least trying some of the free programs offered by the keyword research tools. And honestly, paying for 1 month at least of a keyword research tool is probably going to be worth your time. I think a lot of people are hesitant because they've already, invested so much in it. But again, your time is money. Every hour you spend should have like a dollar value assigned. So if you're spending, let's say it's $20 on a pro plan for 30 days, and you're like, okay, I'm going to extract as many keywords as I can do for the next 6 months, and I'm going to save them in my computer, then that's probably going to be good use of your $30 versus I'm not going to spend anything else, and I'm just going to try to piece together all this information, and it will take me 12 hours of YouTube videos.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. It's smart too, because like it's not like those keywords, a lot of them anyway, I call it 90% of them are probably not going to be obsolete in 6 months from now, right? It's not like, they're only good for that 30-day span. And then now, January hits and it's all new keywords now. It doesn't work like that, right? So I think that's a great use of your time. Is there a point in time when you're using these tools where you think it makes sense to upgrade, let's say from free to a paid version, or from a lower tier to a higher tier or something like that?
I find that Canva Pro is always a good upgrade, and there's so many different features of it, but the main one right now is that's how you can make an editable printable. And in the printable space, I don't think it's quite as important maybe as it is in POD right now. You would be more of an expert in this, but seems like you have to sell personalized stuff lately to really do well in POD, maybe. In printables, depending on what other sellers are doing, you don't actually need to do editable products. And sometimes I have had periods of my life where I have editable products that do really well, and I've actually turned off those products. Like I've turned off ads to an editable product because editable products sometimes lead to more customer questions. And the people that choose to sell digital products, we are trying to do the set it and forget it side hustle. So getting messages because we just made 100 sales of a digital product that someone needs help with their editing, because some people are not as tech savvy as other people.
Yeah.
That can be something that we don't want to do. We'd rather just, I'm just going to take a little less revenue this month because I don't want to deal with customer questions. So I do want to mention that there's no free lunch. Like you will make more money with an editable product, but you will get more questions. And the questions don't take too long, but we all want to provide good customer service, and we want to help somebody figure out how to edit this product. And depending on what you're selling can be more or less. So just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, earlier this year, I had a bestseller funeral program template, and it was doing really well. I was running ads to it. But when people are doing funeral programs, the person that is in their life that they're doing this for has just passed, and it's a high tension time. And they often don't have much time to do this. And they've been tasked to be the person that has to make these programs. And now they might not even be techie, and they have to figure out how to edit it. And truthfully, it is not hard to edit using any of these tools. But for whatever reason, a lot of people that aren't super comfortable with computers, they might struggle. But you want to be there for them during this time because this is a particularly stressful event in their life. Kind of like weddings, or there's certain kind of printables or digital product niches that may lead to more or less tension customer service. So earlier this year, I mentioned I'm 39 weeks pregnant. Earlier this year, I was kind of having that first trimester tiredness and nausea. I wasn't in a place where I wanted to answer all of these customer service questions that were really timely for this product, despite the fact that it was making money. So for me, I chose to stop running ads and to turn off that product for a little bit. And that was a good decision. So I want to mention that Canva Pro and all this it's very, very helpful. But there's a cost when you do editable printables in terms of your customer service. Whereas if you sell a basic product, you're probably going to get 0 customer service questions, and it will be fairly simple. Maybe people will say, how do I download it? But besides that, it's very simple.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's editable, ultimately they can customize any part of it they want, right? So that's the whole point, I think, you know.
Yes, sometimes it's better to lock down certain pieces actually so they don't mess it up. But then you'll get questions of like, oh, can I change this bird to a tree? And you've like locked the bird down. So it really depends on what you're doing. But that being said, I mean, if this is purely a revenue play for you, then it is beneficial to allow somebody to have a little more freedom with the
For
editing.
sure. And it kind of absolves you from having to do any of the personalization stuff, right? You can almost kind of,
Yeah.
I would assume you could kind of put that in your marketing as well, in your messaging.
Right. And if
That
you want to do more work, like
totally,
we have people that do custom all the time. And some people,
yeah,
they sell, I will edit it for you. For example, in some spaces like birthday newsletters, people will just like they'll do it for you, or anything that's personalized for like a special event. But it's easier and more hands off to let the customer do it.
interesting that you say that. So let's talk about newbies for a sec. So if somebody's going into, let's say new to the printables, but not new to Canva, and you know they're well versed and they know their way around. Would you suggest that to somebody as a newbie, saying, you know, as a maybe to have that leg up or that higher barrier to entry compared to their competition by offering DIY done for you templates? Would that be a good entry point for somebody who's new to Etsy, but not necessarily new to Canva and knows their way around the tools?
I would say no. So I've seen, because I have the experience, I've seen 20,000 people do it. That's a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
look at who does well and who doesn't. And often people are doing this as kind of their first foray at an online business. And sometimes people they've tried blogging or they've tried other things, but they actually are making money for the first time with the digital products, even if it's like a $2 or $7 sale here and there. Done for you is a lot. So I'll give you an example. My sister, I actually, when we first got started, I told her I needed someone to be like a tester to make sure that my program worked. This was like way back in 2019, I think. And she was selling a bachelorette party thing too. And she had a customer, I always remember him, Randy, and he kept, when she changed the cowboy boots to like an umbrella or something, he kept going back and back saying, can you make it this? Can you make it that? So now she's done 7 iterations for Randy, and she's afraid if she doesn't do his next iteration that she's not going to get a good review. A more experienced seller has a lot of confidence and they have
Yeah.
more that they can weigh on to be like, okay, Randy, you're done now. And we're good. Whereas my sister, with these are her first couple sales, these are her first couple reviews. She's stuck in that kind of wheel with him. So I would say no. I would not recommend that to a new person. That being said, you might have a rock star listener here that they just want to do it because they know they can make more and they have a little more time, or they're just willing, they have that time and the energy to do it. And that's a different scenario.
It makes totally sense. It's kind of like, it takes me back to the, you know, the freelance graphic days, right? Like I would, you know, in the beginning, unlimited revisions, but then you quickly realize that some people will take that literally and just keep coming back, and you know what I mean, and over and over and over. At some point, you have to say that, you know, hard stop. You have 3 revisions. Anything above and beyond that is going to come at this cost, and then you're, you know, that's murky waters for Etsy, right? How do you charge for a subsequent service element attached to something they've already paid for? So yeah, that could be a nightmare. You talked about like kind of, you know, having a little bit of crossover with that, right? So are you able to maybe speak to how POD items can work well with printables in the same shop, or were those actual combo products, or were they like completely separate listings?
We have seen people start print on demand as an additional product line after they already created a digital product shop. And in general, what is different about people coming through our world and our kind of coaching philosophy is we believe in simplicity and put it all in one shop and just use shop sections. And some people will argue, well, that doesn't work. But I have seen people make 50,000 sales on Etsy with one giant shop. And part of the reason is that for the most part, unless you're doing something so hyper niche that customers know your brand, most people couldn't even tell you the name of the shop where they buy something from, particularly digital products or print on demand products. It's more of like a one-time thing where they go in, they get what they need, they see it in search results, and they're not even necessarily viewing your shop collectively as a whole. In that case, you can put it all in one shop and you just add it together. Now, if you are wanting to branch off and you want to create this like super sub niche thing, and maybe you have some type of special background in that niche, then you can put it in a second shop. And I've seen that work well for people. But we were talking before this, there's the risk of suspensions kind of slowing you down. Etsy likes to validate new shops, and it can be hard to create a second or third shop, but doable if you're patient and wait for them to verify you. But we do like to kind of have everyone put it together. And obviously, if you're selling somewhat similar stuff, you won't confuse Etsy regarding what your shop is about. If it's truly about something truly different and you have your niche down in both spaces, then I would separate it.
It's like having a bunch of hunting centric stuff and then also introducing, vegetarian or veganism in the same breath, right? You'll be less likely to buy something if you're looking at somebody's shop if the complete polar opposite listing is beside it. Just kind of negates your value or your worth in the space.
Sometimes it's like what is the best thing to do from a revenue perspective and what is the best thing to do from like a lifestyle perspective. And putting it all in one shot may help you sell on Etsy longer. Like I've been selling for a very long time and doing things like I said earlier, like when I was pregnant and turning off a profitable listing, you wouldn't recommend someone do that, but it helps you kind of stay the course longer. So if for you, it's hard to like manage two shops and you accidentally forget to answer someone and now you miss star seller in the second shop and you get dinged in the search results or whatever, like it's not really worth that complexity. You'll probably be better long-term if you can put it all in one shop and you have an easier time managing it.
Yeah. And I've seen people get actually, because they let one shop slip and forgot or close a shop, but even forgot to make a payment for a dollar or something of outstanding. Their subsequent shops, because they're all attached, have gotten, suspended. So something to think about on that end too, right? Sometimes just less is more. Simplicity could just be worth all the lack of headaches and trials and tribulations going forward. 2025 trends. You mentioned personalized baby books, personalized dog shirts, and digital patterns. Like the dog niche is like a huge one for us. Any of those trends do you think are going to last into 2026? And do you have any new ones that maybe are emerging now or that you think won't just be a Q4 flash in the pan and something that might actually, propel you further into 2026?
I think the big thing that I like to look at, and I think eRank recently released this when I was in their dashboard, who are people shopping for? And babies, dogs, and cats were the top three.
Yeah.
And then men, women was down the bottom of the list. So it's not necessarily what trends, like, like for example, I could tell you, ever since the Barbie movie came out, every holiday is pink. So we talked about the holidays. Somehow there's pink Christmas trees and there's pink ghosts and it's just pink year round. But in terms of the recipient list, if you stick with babies, cats, maybe you don't make things specifically for women to shop for themselves because Etsy, a lot of the buyers are women, a lot of the sellers are women. It's kind of a thing. So they're buying things for the other people in their lives who are not them. And if you make products for those people, I think you could do well in 2026.
I agree. Giftables, ultimately, right? Like anything that you could buy for somebody else. Yeah, it's been kind of my MO for 10 years now.
And that applies to digital. Digital products are giftable too.
Smart. Course and community here. So I want to talk about what you do specifically. So your course includes a community for students. How does your community help people succeed? What sets you apart in that way?
So we have the VIP ePrintables group, and you get 30 days free with that if you buy the ePrintables course. And in that 30 days, we run live events. You get access to at least one or two audits of your listings with our coaches. And I think that's what's unique about Gold City Ventures. When I started this, I started it with a business partner that was a separate entity where we're in totally different age demographics. We lived in different parts of the country at the time, and we came together to do this. So we always had that kind of two-person, we both sell on Etsy, but we have different approaches mentality. And then we hired, since then, 6 more coaches. So you're kind of getting like a lot more perspectives. And then just with our volume, you're just getting access to a lot more sides of other people that are doing it. You can see, we have something called the 100 Sales Club, where you can see when people get 100 sales, then they get our monthly coaching community, and we give out templates every month. They get that for free indefinitely, because we're just trying to get them over the edge of actually reaching their goal, because we know it can get distracting. So that's something unique, I think, about our community that maybe the others don't have. You're getting a lot of different perspectives from both the coaches and from the students.
Love it. That said, you have a free guide to this best-selling products on the monthly, right? That seasonal guide. So can you give us an example of how planning around those seasons ultimately helps you or a student make steady income months?
The crazy thing is that everything is seasonal on Etsy. We use the term seasonal and evergreen product. There are some evergreen products, like for example, a budgeting planner or like a paycheck planner. Those are things that people want year round. But you can imagine they really want it in January.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that they are evergreen and they kind of help you smooth out those peaks and valleys of the different holidays, but they're not totally inherently the same throughout the year. So with that monthly calendar, and we actually have a webinar coming up Tuesday, September 23rd, but if anyone buys Printables, our main course during that, they're going to get, I think it's like a 50-page monthly calendar where Chelsea, one of our coaches who has 12,000 sales, she cherry picked all the products that you should sell every single month, like the actual screenshots of best-selling products and what the holidays are that month you should do. Because we think of the main ones like Christmas and Easter, but what about Veterans Day? What about Grandparents' Day in Australia? Like there's so many other ones that you can kind of edge other people out for because they don't even think of those. So that's why that seasonal strategy, it feels like maybe there's so much time between Christmas and Valentine's Day, but you're forgetting about like the 4 other minor holidays and other holidays in other countries that you can make products for.
Yeah, we're not talking just a drop in a bucket either. Like I had no idea there was a Grandparents' Day in Australia. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's Mother's Day in other countries and such. And, like we
Yeah.
talked about, it's not as big as in the US, but it's every year these international markets are growing bigger and bigger. And it kind of, if you already made the same design for the Mother's Day in the US, then you can change that design for another country, and particularly if it's English speaking, pretty quickly. You just have to market it slightly different.
Yeah, different time of year is all it is really.
Mhm.
So shifting gears a little bit here. Now you're doing all of this as a mom. You got multiple businesses. How do you stay productive? Like you mentioned earlier, like a lot of newbies in this are doing this already have like full-time jobs or they're a full-time mom a few times over. What does that look like for staying productive? And have you developed anything to help you stop from burning out? Because getting overwhelmed is normal, especially in the beginning, but burnout is like the enemy, right? Like if you're burnt out, you're good to nobody, never mind yourself. So what kind of workarounds do you have that way?
I think some of the things I talked about earlier, like really making sure that when I'm going to list something or I'm doing something, there's going to be return on my time. I'm like very, very conscious of that. And then also spending more time creating than consuming. And this is hard for me because I was the person that listened to 20 podcasts a week. And truthfully, you might be spending too much of your time consuming other people's information and not enough time making products and listing them on Etsy and just seeing if they work or not. And I think a lot of new people fall into that trap. And particularly with moms, I mean, we really don't have that much time. So you just have to be super smart about how you're spending it and see your time as valuable. So that's why I mentioned getting a coach or somebody or joining a community or someone that can tell you what you're doing wrong, because I don't want to spend 4 months, particularly when there could be other things I could be doing for my family or myself with that time. I don't want to be spending it going in circles when I could have just had someone tell me the answer like 4 months ago. So that's how I kind of approach it.
I love that you said that because like I've been preaching the same kind of thing in that, the people who win at anything you're doing for yourself are not the ones who just consume, and then iterate. It's the ones who consume, iterate, right? Put into action what you're learning. If you're only consuming and you spent like 4 hours consuming, you've already forgotten, like you watched like 8 videos in a row. You've already forgotten 2/3 of what you've consumed in the beginning, right? So it's like, now you've just wasted your time. So I think, yeah, value your time is, literally it's the only thing we have that is of true value. So I love that you prioritize that too. Let's talk about the future of printables. There was a time where I think people had said that, POD was going to peak. It's going on forever. It's just just getting warmed up. What's the outlook for printables in this case? And what AI tools are more and more people, using now? And is that a thing? Or is AI having as big an impact on printables as what we're seeing on the POD side?
So printables are only gaining in demand. And I know people love to say, oh, it's super saturated. That's not true. More and more people are seeing Etsy as a place to buy digital products. As someone that's seen it over the years, and when I see of what my friends and family who have nothing to do with online business, what they're doing in their lives, they're realizing, oh, I can get Valentine's Day class cards on Etsy. And there's some type of arms race on Pinterest and in the classrooms of who can make the best DIY birthday party stuff for their kid or whatever. That trend is only increasing. TikTok, people are getting more visual and they're seeing these things and then they're going online. So I actually think that this is something that has grown in terms of demand, and it's only going to continue to grow. On the AI side, it's interesting. Whenever we mention AI in our email list, we'll get a lot of angry emails of people that don't feel that AI should be used to create digital products because it's unfair. That being said, it's changed my opinion of whether people should sell wall art or not. I'm not going to debate the ethics of it, but I had a hard do not sell wall art disclaimer for years. But now that you can use AI to produce it, I'm like, okay, you could sell wall art if you wanted to. But I do want to let people know, creating 100 different sizes and then getting customers that don't print it out right, it's a customer service issue, and it's a little harder than just doing the simple PDFs that I mentioned before. But I do think AI has kind of changed the game for that, and people are just using Midjourney to create most of those images right now. What people are doing, and by the way, by people, I mean the more experienced sellers that have thousands of sales on Etsy, they're using AI tools to create clip art so that their stuff is a little different than what they might see produced in some of the other tools like Canva, for example. Although Canva has an unlimited supply of clip art, but sometimes people will create very custom things using like Midjourney, and then their printables kind of stand out. They can create whatever they want. That being said, I want to mention, and this relates to my create more than consume, I do think that influencers who have platforms are wanting to put out like, hey, here's how to use this tool, here's how to use this tool, here's how to use this AI tool. And for the digital product and printable people specifically, I feel like this goes under my create versus consume. Consuming all that is probably not going to make you a lot of money. Now you're just spread across 4 different tools. Whereas if you just committed to one, or even if you don't use AI at all, I would say 99.9% of our students are not using AI. The ones that are making money are not using AI. You don't really need it. I think that's probably a better approach for you than spending time learning a lot of tools right now. And particularly in printables, the AI, it's not good enough to create text designs with, like, you can imagine some of the printables I showed earlier, like the AI is not going to output something that's ready for you to list on Etsy just yet.
Yeah, I played around with ChatGPT's Canva connection, and it's barely mediocre. I was going to say mediocre at best, but it's not even close. It's pretty deflating when I got so excited about maybe having some kind of thing automated, because like you with the slide decks, like I do some trainings and stuff, and I thought maybe I could, dump my script in here and then have it, kind of make something beautiful for me so I don't have to lay it out. It's garbage so far, but
we all use ChatGPT for ideation, and by all I don't mean necessarily the students, but like the more experienced sellers. When we're doing a more complicated printable, we're getting an idea of like features we didn't consider or the text to put on the printable. We're getting that idea from like a ChatGPT, but there's no like A to Z right now tool that you can generate the entire printable. So it's maybe coming, but right now it's kind of like you're just going to create something that's kind of subpar if you try that.
This has been awesome, Julie. It's been, a long time coming, I think, but before we wrap up, you have some freebies for us, and you also have an upcoming free training September 23rd, which is titled Your First 50,000 Selling Printables. And I have a link down below to use it, so everyone will be able to jump on that train. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what you have for us today?
Sure. So I mentioned Chelsea before, but she's a stay-at-home mom of 3 and former teacher that was a student of mine. She's now a coach of mine. She has 12,000 sales on Etsy. I think she has over 3,000 sales on Teachers Pay Teachers. And she's just an example of someone that did this while having 3 kids and a lot going on in her life, and kind of was in that career transition point. So she's going to be coming on with my business partner, Cody, and they're sharing their secrets for how to sell your first $50,000 with printables too. And one thing about Chelsea's story that's unique, she has ADHD. So we're going to cover a little bit of like, if you are someone that struggles with focus or you're just not you're dealing with ADHD or you're just not focusing, how did she get through it? And like, what are the tools that you could take away to do that too? So we're going to be getting into that. We'll talk about seasonal versus evergreen printables. There's a lot of fun stuff happening. I mentioned some of the amazing bonuses that are going to be given out during this too. If you happen to want to join ePrintables during that time, I don't want to give away the surprise, but we have a package of October, November, December templates that have over 119 pages of Canva templates. So you could create that many products if you wanted to. And we're going to show you how to use them and all that. So it's going to be a really fun event. A lot of people are going to be coming. I think last year, like over 600 people came live. So awesome. I highly recommend checking that out. I think you'll like it. If you need that primer of like what even our digital downloads, how do I get started? You're going to think it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. That sounds exciting. And it sounds like with the ADHD element in there, it sounds like something that I might need to check out myself. And part of it, being a little, call it neurospicy, is like, I don't want to say overcommitting, but almost overcommitting. Like I'll just commit to something until I make it a success and then I move on to the next, but I can't stop and pause in between. And it's like full throttle, blinders on, and I go. And then there's, other people that just try to do 1,800 things at the same time. So there's lots of, interesting takes on that. So it'd be really cool to get some insight of that. Julie, it's been awesome. And I'm glad we got to do this again. It was, amazing having awesome mindset chat on your podcast. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll leave a link down to that one below as well. But definitely, check out the free training. You got nothing to lose.
Thanks for having me.